brought the treasure of divine love, who is filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where is my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the saviour of the fallen? Where is my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? Where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to attain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Does someone want to collect those books? Someone collect all the books? Oh, she got it. Yes, so it's a special day. Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is one of the famous 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and we know that Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they had a younger brother called Anupam. Actually, Anupam, he was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. And actually, he got the name Anupam was given to him by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But unfortunately, he passed away just after Rupa Goswami had arrived from Vrindavan, and when they were staying in Bengal on their way to meet Lord Chaitanya and Jagannath Puri. Actually, Srila Prabhupada said he was Lord Ramachandra was his life and soul. And he went back to the spiritual world to join Lord Ramachandra on his special place there in the spiritual world, Lord Ramachandra. So Anupam, he had a younger son, and that was Jiva Goswami. And it's Jiva Goswami's disappearance today. And he was a very special son, even from a very early age. Very young age, he witnessed the amazing pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. And all Lord Chaitanya's intimate exchanges with his intimate associates and relatives. And actually, Lord Chaitanya became Jeev's life and soul. When little Jeev, when he was just a young boy, heard that his father had passed away, he was actually devastated in his mind. Not just because he was his father, but Anupam was a great Vaishnava devotee of the Lord. And naturally, he had a great attachment for his father. So soon after this, we know Rupa and Sanatan, on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they settled in Vrindavan, to write books, establish Vaishnava etiquette by their personal example. Also, he and Lord Chaitanya instructed them to excavate the holy places of pilgrimage, establish temples, deity worship in Vrindavan. See, while they were in Vrindavan, little Jiva, he was always thinking, when will I go to Vrindavan to meet Rupa and Sanatan? When will I go? When will I go? He was always in this mood of separation from Rupa and Sanatan. And he was a very special boy. He wasn't like normal children. Normal children, they like to play. They like to have the toys. They like to play little games. They do their schoolwork. But actually, Jeev, it was noted, he had no interest in these things as a young boy. He had no interest in playing games. He had no interest even in his schoolwork. or any material comforts of life. Now he had his little Krishna Balaram deities. And actually these little Krishna Balaram deities were like the center of his whole life. And he would offer food to them, bow down to them, dress them, make beautiful garlands for his little Krishna Balaram deities. He would sing to them. He would offer prayers to them. Especially, he would offer a special prayer to them. He would pray to them, "Oh my dear Krishna Balaram, when will that day be when I would meet Rupa and Sanatan in Vrindavan?" He was feeling his intense separation, not just from Rupa and Sanatan, but from Lord Chaitanya and all his associates. And actually sometimes he was just a young boy, but it was seen that sometimes he would be seen just weeping, just crying, and tears of love would just flow from his eyes. He couldn't control his emotions. People were actually very concerned about him. And one night he just completely broke down. He just broke down and he began praying from the core of his heart to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda Prabhu, begging for their mercy and kindness. And that night he had a special dream that Lord Chaitanya and his intimate associates, they appeared to him in this dream. This dream is like he had this transcendental vision of Lord Chaitanya and his associates just chanting and dancing in ecstasy, having this beautiful kirtan. And just seeing that beautiful form in this transcendental vision of Lord Gauranga dancing and chanting, trembling in ecstasy, it just brought so much joy to Jiva's heart. However, when the dream broke, Jiva, he just woke up and he just fell to the ground. He just fell to the ground, calling out, "My Lord, where are you? Where are you?" He was crying in separation. This separation from the Lord, this mood of separation. It's the highest spiritual perfection attained by those devotees who had the highest qualifications. This mood of separation is when their love for Krishna is just intensified in this mood of separation. It's a special condition awarded by the Lord himself. And we know the 6 Goswamis were always in that mood. They were wandering around Vrindavan aimlessly, calling out, "Krishna, where are you? Where are you, Krishna?" This mood of separation. When I think of that, I always think of, one devotee asked Prabhupada, this mood of separation is a very high level of spiritual elevation. But should we also feel a separation? And in that conversation, Prabhupada said yes. Actually, Krishna, we should be thinking Krishna is so far away in the spiritual world. And we are right down here in this little planet Earth, which is just in one little tiny planet, in one little universe, which Prabhupada used to describe this material universe as like a whole bucket of mustard seeds. And this one universe is just like one little mustard seed. And we're down here in planet Earth, and Krishna's so far away in the spiritual world, we should be thinking that we want to be with him. We should feel that separation. And of course we should be practicing our Krishna consciousness very sincerely, that we can, in our next life, we can be there in the spiritual world with Krishna and his eternal associates. So Jiva, he was just crying in the separation. Finally, he fell asleep. And then suddenly his Krishna Balaram, his worshipable deities, Krishna and Balaram, appeared to him in the spiritual vision, in their original forms of Krishna and Balaram. And they were just looking on Jiva with so much love. He was such a dear servant of the Lord. And then suddenly, his little Krishna Balaram, actually, they transformed themselves into Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, and will manifest before him. And then, in his mind, in this transcendental vision, in this kind of dream-like state, he took their lotus feet and he placed them on his head. It's a sign that when someone just completely surrenders their life totally, place the Lord's lotus feet on their head. Then Lord Chaitanya, he said to Jiva, I am entrusting you to the care of Lord Nityananda. You are his property. Then Nityananda, he turned to Jiva and he said to Jiva, he gave him his first instruction. He said, you always worship Lord Gauranga as your life and soul, as your very life and soul. And soon after, the Lord, he inspired Jiva to go to Navadvip and take darshan of the holy places and also meet Lord Nityananda. So, on his arrival at Navadvip, Jiva, he just went, he took some darshan of the holy places, and then he went to Lord Nityananda, and he just fell at the feet of Lord Nityananda, and Lord Nityananda very mercifully placed his lotus feet on Jiva's head. And then Lord Nityananda took Jiva on a special parikram of all of Navadvip. And then Nityananda Prabhu then ordered Jiva that you should go to Vrindavan and take shelter of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. But also he said that on your way to Vrindavan you should stop at Varanasi, and you will find one very learned Brahmana there, named Madhusudan Vashashpati. Now, this very learned Brahmana was a very special, intimate disciple of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And so Lord Nityananda said, you should go to him and you should learn the sastras from him. So Lord Jiva, he left and he became a student of this very special Brahmana who is a very intimate disciple of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is, is a very intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya. And within a short time, Jiva became a famous scholar of the Vedas. And his teacher was just chanting his glories throughout Varanasi. So after his studies, he continued on his journey to the land of Vrindavan to meet Rupa and Sanatana. This was his long, cherished dream since he was just a little boy, was to go to Vrindavan, meet Rupa and Sanatana. So when he arrived, since Sanatana Goswami was considered the senior most of all the Goswamis. So Jiva went to him and he fell down at his lotus feet and he begged him to accept him as his disciple and give him initiation. But Sanatana Goswami, he entrusted him to Rupa Goswami to take initiation. So although Jiva was a very exalted devotee, he's an eternal associate of the Lord, one of coming from Krishna's inner circle of devotees, intimate servants in the spiritual world. And although he's an unalloyed pure devotee, a brilliant scholar, totally renounced, Rupa Goswami didn't immediately initiate him. He wanted to train him in menial service. So sometimes Rupa Goswami would sometimes would engage Jiva in just different types of services. Like sometimes he would have Jiva prepare deity paraphernalia for his Radha Govindaji deity, make garlands, cleaning the temple, preparing pencils for Rupa's writing. They used to had these special pencils, and they used to write on palm leaves. And so we'd have Jiva prepare the pencils, gather the palm leaves for him to write on. And sometimes Jiva would massage Rupa Goswami's lotus feet. So, after some time, Rupa, he was very pleased with Jiva's service and his mood, his humble mood, and he gave him initiation. And there are many stories, actually, of the reciprocation of love between Rupa and Jiva Goswami. There's one famous story we'll find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about this. There's a great philosopher and who was a great debater, Digvijay. Digvijay. He came to Vrindavan. He had actually, Digvijay, he'd been traveling to many places throughout the whole of India, challenging and defeating so many scholars. In those days, just like today, we have all these competitions going on between tennis players and different ball games and sports. So in those days, they used to have the great scholars would travel around, and they would go from town to town, and they'd call out the leading pundits and learned scholars of that town for a public debate. He would challenge them. This Digvijay, he went through right all over India, challenging, defeating many scholars in public debates. And when defeating these scholars, he would have them sign a certificate declaring that they had been defeated by Digvijay. So this pundit, he came to Navadvip, and he approached Rupa and Sanatana, and he declared, "I am a famous scholar. I challenge you both in a debate." However, Rupa and Sanatana, that was so humble, they could have easily defeated him and actually, become glorious amongst the local people as the famous scholars. But they didn't care anything about the prestige of this world. They didn't care anything about name, fame, adoration. They told the pundit, "Why should you waste your time trying to defeat someone who is really not up to your scholarly standard and status? We admit defeat." The pundit, Digvijay, he demanded, "Then you sign a certificate admitting your defeat." So Rupa and Sanatana, they humbly signed a certificate admitting defeat. Thus the scholar Digvijay was happy and went round town exclaiming, "I have defeated Rupa and Sanatana." So this proud pundit, he had also heard that Jiva, he was the youngest of the Goswamis, was an upcoming scholar. So he thought, "I will defeat him also." So he went and challenged Jiva, and he showed him the certificate. "Look, Rupa and Sanatana have signed the certificate. They've admitted that they've been defeated by me." So seeing this, Jiva became angered, declaring, "What nonsense is this? You are deriding, you are blaspheming Rupa and Sanatana." And he declared to him, "I will accept your challenge." So after debating for 7 days, it was unanimously agreed that by all these scholars and dotis and Brahmins present, that the famous Digvijay had been defeated by Jiva. So Jiva didn't do this for his own name and fame. He did this only for one reason, out of great love for his gurus, to preserve their dignity and their names. This is natural for a Vaishnava devotee. They don't care about their own people deriding themselves. That when the Guru is derided, or great Vaishnavas are derided, Krishna is derided, they become angry. Natural. So after this, Jiva Goswami very happily went to announce to Rupa and Sanatana that the dignity of their good names have been preserved. However, when Rupa heard this, "You defeated him? What nonsense is this? He's a mundane scholar. We don't waste our time with mundane scholars. You wasted 7 days defeating him? This means you wanted to establish yourself as a great scholar, which is a sign of pride. No one with even a drop of pride can live in Vrindavan Dham. Therefore, you must leave this place." Jiva Goswami, his heart was broken. Thinking he had offended his guru, he bowed down to his guru with tears of love and shame. And he left Vrindavan. And he went to Mathura. And in Mathura he was performing great austerities of atonement. Fasting, chanting, trying to atone for his offence. So then, after some time, Sanatana, feeling sorry for Jiva. Jiva was so heartbroken. He approached Rupa, saying, "I think there is something about Mahaprabhu's philosophy that you do not understand." Rupa asked, with extreme humility, "Oh Sanatana, please explain to me what you mean." Soon Sanatana was outlining all the major points in Lord Chaitanya's philosophy. When he came to the principles of Jiva Daya, kindness to Jivas, Rupa could understand. Be kind to Jiva Goswami. So Rupa soon called Jiva back to Vrindavan, and out of love for his dear disciple, he embraced and Jiva. He loved his disciple so much. So it was not simply out of pride that Jiva had seemingly transgressed Vaishnava etiquette, but he was setting an example, showing the mood of a true Vaishnava, who can tolerate and bear all insults to himself, but cannot tolerate insults to exalted Vaishnavas, especially one's own guru. So ultimately Jiva was perfectly situated on the highest platform of devotion, defending his guru. And by Rupa's Goswami's chastisement, we learn how important it is to be totally humble and free from all desires for fame, name, adoration, especially when residing in holy places like Vrindavan. And also, Rupa Goswami, he wanted to show the world the unlimited glories of Jiva Goswami. How he was an ocean of transcendental spiritual qualities such as humility and tolerance and devotion. Actually, soon after Rupa Goswami, he had these beautiful deities, a beautiful set of deities, Radha Damodar, which he had personally carved. And as a gift of love, he presented them to Jiva Goswami, his disciple. And this worship of Radha Damodar became Jiva Goswami's life and soul. He worshipped those deities with so much devotion. And actually it was during this time, it was believed that the great Emperor Akbar, he came to Vrindavan, he met Jiva Goswami, and because, Jiva Goswami was such a transcendental personality, he transformed the emperor's heart. He was given such a vision and appreciation of Vrindavan by Jiva Goswami that he became very active in developing Vrindavan's holy places. He constructed temples, such as the Radha Damodar Temple, the Radha Govindaji Temple. And then it was in that Radha Damodar Temple at Jiva, he organised a special library with all the writings of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj were kept safely. They kept safely there. And of course, also a major contribution to that library was the writings of Jiva Goswami himself. You know, he was a very prolific writer. It's been approximated that he has written more than 400,000 Sanskrit slokas, 25 beautiful books, like the Satsandarbhas, Gopal, Champu. I mean, actually, when you read Prabhupada's books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see Prabhupada is constantly quoting Jiva Goswami as an authority. We know that Lord Chaitanya, he personally instructed and empowered Rupa and Sanatana to write and expand his teachings. And it was Jiva Goswami who expanded the teachings of Rupa and Sanatana. So he was the one that really established the philosophical basis of our movement. He expanded these teachings like anything. No one had ever done before. Now he went on to become Rupa and Sanatana's successor after they departed from this world, from this earth, from their earthly lila. And Jiva went on to become the leader of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And he also became the Shiksha Guru for 3 very exalted Vaishnavas, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, Shyamananda Pandit. And we know that, there came a time when Jiva decided that it is a desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we distribute this literature far and wide. And so he gathered all the Vaishnavas together and he told them, it is time now that we start distributing this literature. And as he looked around all the devotees there present, his eyes fell on these 3 personalities, Narottam, Srinivas and Shyamananda. They were said to be his 3 best students. So he asked them, he went to take on this mission, and they accepted it. And he organised beautiful ox carts and these beautiful boxes to carry the books. And they travelled around Bengal and Orissa distributing these books to the masses. So we see that Jiva Goswami, he was the one who personally orchestrated the first travelling book distribution party. It's also important to remember that, when Srila Prabhupada went to Vrindavan to prepare himself for his great mission of spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world, given to him by his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada knew that this Radha Damodar Temple, established by Jiva Goswami, it was a special place. It was a special place where all the Goswamis and other intimate associates, they would meet there on a regular basis and study the books, discuss Krishna Katha, chant the holy name, take prasadam, associate with each other. So we know that Srila Prabhupada was continuously praying to Srila Jiva Goswami. He was the most prominent writer amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas for his blessings and empowerment, so that he could successfully write his translations, purports of Srimad Bhagavatam in the English language. In this way we see Srila Prabhupada, he took great inspiration from Srila Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami at this Radha Damodar Temple. And when he got the blessings of Srila Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada left Vrindavan, he went to Bombay and he began making his arrangements to go to America to start this Hare Krishna movement. So there's very, in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it is stated that a pure Vaishnava devotees like Jiva Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, they do not take their birth like normal human beings. They do not take their birth under the jurisdiction of karmic laws. That their birth and their disappearance are transcendental. That means that pure Vaishnavas like Srila Prabhupada, Jiva Goswami, they're very dear servants of the Lord. They're not ordinary human beings or conditioned souls. There's a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says, "Oh my Lord, great philanthropic souls, they travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Lord to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord." It means Krishna's intimate, dear devotees. They come, they're sent from the spiritual world, from Krishna's inner circle of devotees, of servants. They come and they wander here in this material world, on the material platform, just to shower mercy on suffering humanity. In the Bhagavad Gita we read that Krishna declares that when there's decline in religious principles and a predominant rise of a religion, either he comes himself personally, but he also, we know, he comes in various incarnations, and also he sends his representatives to act on his behalf. So we see, Krishna sends his own men, his dear and intimate devotees like Jiva Goswami, Srila Prabhupada. He sends them to this world to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that this movement would spread worldwide. And, we know that Srila Prabhupada's coming was predicted 5,000 years ago by Krishna himself. He said that when Narada Muni went to Krishna and he was telling him that, soon, my Lord, you will be departing from this world. You'll be going back to the spiritual world. What's going to happen to this world? And Krishna, he thought for a few seconds and he said that I will come in the age of Kali in my golden form and we will flood the world with Harinam Sankirtan. And then in the future, my Senapati Bhakta, my commander-in-chief of the Vaishnavas, he's talking about Srila Prabhupada. He will come and he will take this Sankirtan all over the world. So, see Srila Prabhupada, he came, he fulfilled Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that in every town and village on the earth, the glories of the holy name will be chanted. Srila Prabhupada was completely empowered by Lord Chaitanya to fulfill his mission and carry on the mission of the Goswamis like Jiva Goswami. Actually, it's interesting when we study Prabhupada's life, even as from his childhood, his father was preparing him for the life of a pure Vaishnava. He taught him to worship Krishna, engage in devotional service. And then at the age of in 1922, at the age of 26 years, Srila Prabhupada first met his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who requested him to preach Lord Chaitanya's mission throughout the whole world. So, throughout his whole life, Srila Prabhupada was always meditating on how to fulfill this great quest given to him by his guru. In 1950, he gave up his family responsibility and started focusing on this mission. And we know that in 1965, at the age of 69 years old, he left Calcutta on a steamship, and he had nothing. He just had like $8 in a bag of muesli, a trunk of books. He came to America to try and establish this Hare Krishna movement and spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya worldwide. It's amazing. He had no institutional backing, no supporting awakening him, but he went, I mean, anyone else would be afraid to travel across the ocean, to a completely foreign land with no money in their old age. I mean, no one would go. But Srila Prabhupada went. And he fearlessly carried out the order of his guru to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya. Actually, it is said that Krishna is known as the supreme fearless. And he awards fearlessness to his pure devotees. I always meditate. I remember at Mangalati, when we sing that song, Yashak Prashad, and only by the mercy of the spiritual master can one attain Krishna. That we all know that if it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, none of us would be here today. There would be no temples, no Hare Krishna movement, no books. There's one story so during that prayer I always think of Prabhupada, and this is one story. There was one man, I think he was an associate of Srila Prabhupada, he knew Prabhupada. And then he was passing nearby, and he saw Prabhupada. He was standing on the deck waiting to board the ship. And he was just chanting on his beads. And there was no one there. No friends came to see him off, no relatives. He was just Prabhupada. And this man, he said, Prabhupada, he just looked like a lone fighter ready to take on this great mission. So before leaving India, he'd written 3 books. In the next 12 years, he used to write 60 books. I mean, if a writer writes 3 or 4 books in a lifetime, it's considered to be a great accomplishment. Prabhupada wrote 60 books. Before leaving India, he'd initiated 1 disciple. In the next 12 years, he would initiate more than 4,000. Before leaving India, hardly anyone believed that he could fulfill his mission for a worldwide ISKCON. But in the next 10 years, he formed his ISKCON movement. He opened 100 centers. And actually, before sailing to America, Prabhupada had never been outside India. But in the next 12 years, he traveled the world 14 times. There's a famous story that one famous astrologer in India, they were doing Prabhupada's astrology, and they said that this man has the ability to build a house in which the whole world can live in. Actually, it's interesting, when he arrived in America, Prabhupada said so many Indian leaders, they come to America saying, we are a poor country, India is a poor country, give us rice, give us money, give us this, give us that. But Prabhupada said, I haven't come to beg, I've come to give. In material vision, us were thinking, we are a poor country, India is a poor country, we need help. America's a rich country, they should help us. But actually, Prabhupada was saying that actually India is a rich country because transcendental knowledge is there. And America, very, very poor country because they're missing the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and this Vedic knowledge. So he had that transcendental vision that to see that although there's a sufficient supply of everything here in the West, there's a shortage of this God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And this was the cause of all the problems of the world. The widespread moral degradation, ecological imbalances, diseases, wars, violence, exploitation, oppression, poverty, unhappiness, frustration, economic problems. Prabhupada would say these are all symptoms of a godless civilization. So he had that transcendental vision. He saw how everyone was connected to God, and how even so-called religious people had forgotten that connection. They didn't really understand who God is. what it means to be truly devoted to loving Him and serving Him, what it means to surrender to God, which is the highest religious principle. So this is the mood of the intimate associates of Krishna. They're always with Krishna. And they see how every living entity has a perfect, eternal, loving relationship with Krishna. And they see how every conditioned soul has forgotten this. And therefore they're unhappy. So because of a completely Krishna-conscious person like Srila Prabhupada had this vision, they become overwhelmed with compassion for them. Actually, it is said that a Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava, their heart bleeds to see the suffering of the conditioned souls. They feel great pain. They cannot tolerate seeing the living entity suffering due to separation from the Lord. Therefore, out of pure love for Krishna and love for us, Srila Prabhupada came. And he personally suffered incredible difficulty and hardship and personal inconvenience in his struggle to establish Krishna consciousness all over the world, to enlighten people, to enlighten us, to help us reconnect our loving relationship with Krishna. Therefore we hear that the mercy of Krishna, it follows the mercy of the pure devotees. It said, that by the mercy of Krishna one gets a bona fide spiritual master. It's by the mercy of the spiritual master that one gets Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada has indeed created our good fortune, following in the footsteps of the Goswamis of Vrindavan and the previous acharyas. And he organized so many things to attract us to Krishna consciousness. Just to attract us to the devotional service. He had so many ideas, revolutionary ideas, following in the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Organizing festivals, Sunday feasts, book distribution, temples, Harinams, courage programs, Prashadam distribution. He sent preachers to every corner of the world to teach the science of Krishna consciousness. And, it is said that he opened the door to one and all, without discrimination. So that is his causeless, supreme, uncomparable, uncommon mercy. He demonstrated to everyone that there's no qualification needed to make a commitment to bhakti yoga. So it's by the mercy of the spiritual master that one receives the kripa of devotion, which is the transcendental knowledge how to awaken our love for Krishna. And, he taught us, Srila Prabhupada taught us that this Vedic knowledge, which has been passed down through the cyclic succession, it's universal knowledge and wisdom. It's not just for a particular religion, a particular time or place or culture. It's like the sunshine. It's for everyone. Everyone can benefit from it. Srila Prabhupada had that vision of universal brotherhood. He used to say that the same sun shines in America as it does in India and every other part of the world. It's the same sun. You cannot say this is an Indian sun or American sun or an Australian sun. So he would say, although you may be a foreigner in this country, you see, it's the same moon, same sun, so why should you think of yourself as a foreigner? He said, no one is a foreigner in Krishna's kingdom. Everyone is a brother and sister. Everyone is under Krishna's sunshine, and the Supreme Lord is our ultimate Father. And He has created all of us, including the animals, birds, trees. They're also our brothers. No one has the right to kill them because they're different. So he would conclude, he would say that when you come into the sunshine of Krishna consciousness, you see that everyone has a right to that sunshine. This is universal brotherhood. In the sunshine of Krishna consciousness, you can reclaim your actual freedom and live happily together under the protection and guidance of our Supreme Loving Father. And so when Srila Prabhupada first registered ISKCON as a legal entity in New York in 1966, he had a kind of a mission statement. He said that the prime aim of establishing this Krishna consciousness movement was to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and achieve real unity and peace in the world. So Srila Prabhupada, he successfully fulfilled his aims. You know, his life is an amazing, important, absorbing subject, and there's so many books. We have Harry Suri here. He's written many books on the life of Srila Prabhupada. And you'll see that his life was tangible proof of a spiritual reality and love of Godhead. And I'll just conclude, you know, once Srila Prabhupada, he said that I am creating a whole new civilization here in the Western world. A whole new way of life. Free and happy life. No anxieties. And great hope of going back to Godhead in this lifetime. Srila Jiva Goswami ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Garuda Govinda. So yes, we have the nice festival today. The kirtans start at 9 o'clock and they go through to 9 o'clock. A very special day. Everyone come absorbed in chanting the holy names of the Lord.
Very nice.